The Catholic Underground is only possible through your prayer and financial support. Please go to CatholicUnderground.com and click the Donate tab to find out how you can help us out. Enjoy the episode.
From the Catholic Underground.
Well, hello there. Welcome to Catholic Underground, which is your Catholic guide to the digital continent. I'm Father Chris Decker. Joining us, as he always does, we've got on tap Joshua LeBlanc. Hello, Joshua. How's everything going in your neck of the woods?
Oh, fine and dandy. Hello.
That's very good. And, of course, we would be remiss if we didn't mention Father Ryan Humphreys, who is almost always omnipresent, and he joins us as well. Hello, Father.
Hello, world.
That's right. Well, I tell you, it's been quite a week. Just in general, I've had plenty of funerals, and I've got another one on Friday. But also in the world too, because we find that an era has come to an end, and just as Sony stopped shipping the cassette tape Walkman, the MiniDisc Walkman is also on the block. Joshua, you still own yours, isn't that right?
I do. I have one that I got from a friend of mine a few years back because it was one of those few devices that you could actually carry that wasn't really, when you think of a cassette Walkman, it was more for listening to cassettes, but the mini disc, you could actually do some really good recording with those units. Yeah. And this was before you had anything like flash media around. So even to this day, I have like 2 or 3 1 gig cartridges for the mini discs that if I'm really in a bind, I can record on it.
That's right. And they were cartridges, right? They were like little...
cartridges about the size of a little smaller than a floppy disk that would just slide in. These things were thick too. I mean, they must have been a good, 1/8 of an inch at least, or
like
more.
Discs, weren't they? Just like smaller zip discs?
Yeah, basically a smaller zip disk. Exactly.
They were thinner, as I recall.
Yeah, they just a little bit though, and a little bit smaller, but the thickness was about the same. And it would just slip right into that cartridge, and you press right down on it. And you hook up an external mic, and it gave you great audio quality.
Yeah.
Now, I know that mini discs actually are still used by news organizations. They'll sometimes still send things because these big powerhouse news agencies still have their mini disc recorders, and so you have to get all of your bumps and teases and stuff with a mini disc. Father, did you ever succumb to the mini disc craze? I never did.
I never really had the money or the need for the quality, but I used to work when I was involved with youth ministry more. I worked with a couple of professional recording people who, professional music, and I actually ran some soundboards for some professional recordings. And minidisc was the thing. If you wanted to drop 4 or 8 tracks down in very, very high quality, and then you could, put that in the mail and overnight it. It was the best way to handle it. And I know that I dealt with a lot of minidiscs, and it was sounded great. I mean, it sounded spectacular, and a lot of the equipment could talk to the minidisc natively before there was real digital media to work with. Nowadays, you have a card the size of a thumbnail, and you put 130 songs with 1,000 tracks on them, and you're good to go. But back then, it was a really big deal to have a high-end minidisc recording system.
I was listening to the BBC on the drive back from New Orleans. I went to visit some friends in New Orleans yesterday, and I have to find it, but the World Service had a really good article and video or audio story that they have video for as well that talks about a computer that's the size of a USB drive, and it's got a video out on one end, and it's got a USB on the other end. And so I think it's got like a 700 megahertz processor in it. And so the idea is that this is what a kid would carry around to school. And I have to wonder, do you think that portable media is still in its infancy? Or do you think people will always have a USB drive or even a whole computer that's the size of their thumb?
I think it's very difficult to say because on the one end, there's a security question. And if it's digital, it's insecure. You just have to assume that if it's digital, it can be hacked. And so being able to have something that physically is not connected to the grid, is valuable from a security point of view. The other point of view, though, the cloud has made it such that, really, I know a lot of schools that are using Google Docs. Just because everybody can log into it from anywhere you want to go, and you can send it to your teacher and you're done with it. And so there's not really a pressing need for a lot of students to avoid the cloud. And so I think for security, there's always going to be a need for some kind of separate system. I don't know what that system is going to look like. I doubt it's going to be the Crystal of Babylon 5. But I
it
think
should
will
look
always
like
be
that.
Some kind of physical media. I think it's for at least for a niche audience.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder about the cloud hype. I mean, I know Joshua hates it when we speak about the cloud as if it is an entity, on which fairies live or something. I don't know.
The elders of the internet are there.
That's right. That's where the elders of the internet reside with all of their binary helpers. That's right. You could have a whole cosmology of this. You've got the ones on one side and the zeros on the other, and they wage war against each other. And the zeros become all of the spam that you receive. Yeah, there you go.
This
the surface building Eloy.
Yeah, there you go.
The whole idea of cloud computing really frightens me a bit, because we always talk about this big brother thing. And, I remember the days of IT, every company having its own IT department, because you wanted to keep all of your data internal, because you had things that you really needed to protect from other entities. And the idea that, it's great that I can host my music on iTunes and things like that in the cloud, but I'm really weary of putting my data there. And I guess that's maybe just a little conspiracy theorist in me, but I'm really leery of the fact, because, we've seen it before where, Citibank or all these companies get hacked, and your credit card information somebody has. What's to prevent something being hacked? And it can happen. I'm more weary about having my data on Google servers than I do on having my Drobo sitting in my office.
Yeah.
Because I know sitting in my office that it's behind
secure.
It's secure, or even if it's behind a firewall I can control. I'm pretty certain that my Astaro is going to block everything there is to block. And if I don't physically have it connected to the internet, then I know my data is secure. And so that's what really scares me about, people who are moving towards cloud computing, is that you're basically just giving somebody your data, and that really scares me a bit.
Yeah, it can be kind of scary. Of course, this computer that fits on a thumb drive practically. In fact, thanks to S. Billick in the chat room. That's why we love crowdsourcing things during the podcast. It's called Raspberry Pi. In fact, I can bring up the screen here. I have to... if you're watching us in video, I have to be very clever because one of our black magic cards went out. So anyway, this is a Raspberry Pi. It's a 700 megahertz computer, 256 megs of SD RAM. It's got OpenGL, 1080p, 30 frames a second, H.264 decode for the audio out, HDMI or the video out, HDMI video output, USB memory card slot, and it's got either Ubuntu, Iceweasel, KOffice, and Python on it. And here's what the thing looks like. You can see it on the screen. It's very, very small. Very cool.
I saw this a couple of months ago, and people were talking about just the real possibility of you put the entire operating system, you have kind of a whole standalone, almost James Bondish kind of deal.
Yeah.
And you can issue something like that to any number of situations. Then you have standalone computing. Real valuable. Almost throwaway standalone computing, because they're talking about a price point that's under $50.
Right. They said it's like maybe $20 for these little things to make. And so the thought was that they would be these could be computers that would go to the developing world or to kids in schools. They just buy a whole bunch of them for the class, and that's what they would use to learn typing or something of that nature. And so you just carry it with you. Very interesting idea, and it's not. It's not anywhere connected to the internet. And that's the one thing you see is that it doesn't look like there's any internet ability on it.
Huh.
Although I would imagine that for things like the iPhone that are kind of doing their thing, you probably could find a way to put a little Wi-Fi chip in it,
Well,
I'm
it's
sure.
USB, and so there are some.
Oh, you could plug a dongle
solutions
into a USB hub or something.
Yeah, there are a couple of USB Wi-Fi solutions.
Yeah.
But it's an astounding thing if you think about once they design it a little better and be able to plug it into the wall, and it'd be kind of like having a whole computer in place of Airport Express.
Yeah.
And if you really take it up a notch and they add a few little extra bells and whistles, like the ability to well, let's just leave it at that. But I mean, you add some Bluetooth and stuff like that, and you got some really cool features.
Well, I'm thinking find a way to run a Mac iOS on it and use Keynote.
Well, you could. I mean, or you can just use an Ubuntu emulator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it handles SD cards.
Very cool.
Well, as we're talking about new devices,
Mm-hmm.
we're all big fans of the Zoom H2 here.
Yep.
Have you guys seen the new device Zoom has released
No.
or is going to be releasing?
I have not.
The Zoom H2N. In fact, I'm posting the link right now.
H2N?
The H2N. It has 5 internal mics.
Wow. I don't know what to make of that, actually.
I'm pretty excited about this little unit. It's going to ship in September. And, we've talked about the H2 before.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a really cool looking little unit, all black. It looks to be a little more,
Classy.
yeah, than the...
Spy related.
That's right. This, however, I don't know if you could carry it in your pocket.
It comes with a microphone, too. I mean, not a microphone, a remote.
A remote control.
Yeah.
It does look really nice for some. This would be great if you were doing like you had a band and you were recording some live stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Or
the
it
cool
would
thing
be
is it
real
looks
good
like
if you
a mic itself. It looks like
Yeah.
one of those.
Well, you could see for things like Gregorian chant or things like the if your college choir was performing somewhere
Mhm.
and you wanted to put 6 or 8 of these things around, you wouldn't have to have wires that plugged into some kind of headboard. You just put 5 or 6 of them up, you turn them on, and you sync it up later.
I bet it's amazing.
Yeah,
I mean,
probably.
I know the H2 itself does an excellent job, and if you have the H4, the H4n, those do great jobs. But a unit that's got 5 internal mics, I can imagine the quality you can pick up.
TV's Carson Weber says, I love my Zoom H2.
Stu.
Well, revision. I love my wife. I severely like my H2. Yeah.
We know Carson; it's a toss-up.
That's right. It is a toss-up, spouse or tech. Yeah, I know.
Look at
but
the Meteor
you've chosen
mic.
wisely.
They have a USB studio mic that's pretty.
Yeah, I don't know. We could probably
If you go to the front page and you click announcements, it's called the Meteor mic. It's pretty.
of Zoom.
It looks like R2D2 as a microphone.
I'm getting a bad host name. I don't know.
Well, it's SamsonTech.com.
And now I'm getting PBS Kids. Okay, I'm not moving on. I'm just moving on.
This is awesome. I'm getting one.
One thing that you could do, this is my segue. One thing that you could do, Father Ryan, is you could get one of these new Zoom microphones and you could go to the brand new country of the South Sudan.
That's not a segue.
And you could sound gather. You could go on one of your sound seeing tours that you're so well known for.
Yeah,
Look, I didn't even know this was happening.
It didn't really work out. You have to actually have stuff to say.
Josh didn't know this was happening.
No, I didn't know there was
He
a
had
new
no
country.
Oh no, this is exciting. The Vatican's been working on this for quite a while.
Yeah, because they're Christian. It's a Christian nation.
The problem is North Sudan is Muslim, and there's a great deal of violence, and they've had civil war for 5-6 years, and they finally kind of come to this accord, very much like the India-Pakistan thing,
Mhm.
where you take your country, we'll take ours, and I'll just be happy. And of course, there's still going to be some bickering and fighting, but in South Sudan, there's a great deal of joy and excitement, and of course, certain people who have an interest in destabilizing the world, especially the United Nations, have complained, bickered, and whined about this. But it's a really great thing, and hopefully will bring an end to a long history of very, very violent bloodshed.
Yeah, it's a sizable country too. I mean, if we look here in the on the Wikipedia article, we'll go ahead and switch over to it here. If we switch over, you can see that it's a substantial amount of what was the Sudan. I mean, it really is huge.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a rather large country. Yeah.
Well, not to throw us off topic here, but since we're talking about Sudan,
Since we're off
South,
topic, yeah,
Sudan, it's South Sudan.
Mhm.
Have you guys seen the referendum? And I'm posting it now in the chat room. The referendum that is on the ballot in South California, in California,
right.
to become South California.
I know.
It's a
Yeah.
51st state. That
No.
would be interesting.
Now, of course, it's easier for the Sudanese country to split, I think, than it would be for California to split.
Oh, I don't know. There's supposedly a lot of backing behind this, so it could be interesting.
Well, I mean, honestly, personally, I don't want to have to buy new American flags.
Well,
I was always hoping on Progress Island, USA, becoming the 51st state.
Well, this has been on the ballot initiative before, probably about 8 or 10 times in the last decade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it seems like one of the first times that people are really taking it seriously because, the obnoxiousness of the cultural elite is really beginning to be offensive. And recently a higher up basically told people that if you want to be contrary to the prevailing elite ideology, then just move next door. They're a more conservative state, and we're going to keep California the way it is. Even though a full, more than 51% of that state have consistently shown that they are not of the same ideology as the ruling elite.
What I think is fun is if you look at that map of what South California would be, you could tell there's some serious gerrymandering going on there. I mean, we just went around L.A. County.
well, Senor Second wants to know, would that really help the budget at all? Yeah, I guess it would. Well, I guess it would start the coffers at zero for South California.
That's the argument. The argument is that what's happening in California is that the budget of the state has become so wieldy that the state government's actually going to local governments and seizing money from the local level and trying to claim more money. And so they said California has just become too big to manage as a whole state. So that's their argument, is that we really need to be split up because we're just too big to manage. Now, the argument I would raise is, what about Texas? But it seems like Texas is handling themselves well.
But they're a microcosm for the entire United States. There's a reason that the United States is not one nation. Yeah, it's 50 distinct states who are supposed to be operating their own, most of the time, their own stuff. And the federal government is designed only to be helping with interstate commerce because we're a gigantic nation. We're huge. And the idea that one small group of people can govern the entire thing, that includes everything from a frozen Arctic tundra to, Florida, that's just absurd thinking that one nation can do that. And I think that a lot of the cultural and the the government drama we're dealing with right now is that, this nation was designed quite well, and we've somehow gotten to the illusion we can run everything from one government. And the UN has recognized that they can't do it either. It's a bunch of individual states who have to handle the vast majority of their stuff, in their state. And the more we try to pretend that's not the case, the more our nation falls apart. We've seen that all through history.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's something certainly interesting to follow.
It is.
We fought the war to suppress Yankee arrogance, but this one, do it again.
Backchat at CatholicUnderground.com.
That's right. There you go. And let's just take a look at what South California would look like just for kicks here. Gosh, that's almost like South and East California. Yeah.
You'd be like two Oklahomas with that weird panhandle thing.
That's right.
But what's interesting is all of that area there is mostly the conservative area of California.
Oh, right. So maybe there is some commentary.
Both sides may be happy to split on this one. I mean,
well, quite possibly, That's right. I got to switch the video back here because if you're watching it, you see that actually South California is in Campy, Louisiana. Yeah, we're working on that problem, folks.
It's Father Ryan's new headshot.
That's right, his new headshot, as opposed to our other favorite headshot for Father Ryan that's getting a lot of buzz, which would be this one. We're thinking of actually just keeping this as Father Ryan's official headshot. We'll just kind of go to it. And,
I need a problem with my picture.
That's right.
I'll tell you about another thing about that. And those kids keep getting my garden.
So if you're not subscribed to our video podcast, now you have a reason to do it. Yeah. It's a good thing I haven't really started the timer because I have no idea where we are in terms of time. Let me tell you, we're usually following a rundown, but today, no, not even a little bit. Not even a little bit.
This is free for all.
It is. It's turned into a very free for all type of episode. Yeah. So if you happen to be using the internet at all, which of course all of you are, the 6 mega ISPs, which are either cable companies or telcos, they have all agreed on a new anti-piracy policy, which is a 6 strikes before serving you your done papers. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I guess the real question for me is what's going to connote a strike.
Well, the real question for me is why are ISPs even worried about this stuff?
Why are they legislating it themselves?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the thing. It's, if I'm using the internet and I am pirating music or whatever, I don't expect my ISPs really going to be watching what I'm doing any more than if I walk into a Walmart and I'm pirating music, from CDs, that Walmart is going to be catching me for pirating CDs. I don't get this. I just don't.
Yeah, it is odd. So apparently the ISPs are kind of acting as a watchdog for their own. I'm just trying to figure out how this benefits them at all.
The main way that this really becomes an issue is that they get sued constantly. Served papers constantly for, okay, give us information about this person, or give us information about people who are running this BitTorrent across your things, or give us the logs of this Squid server, and that constant stream of stuff then all has to be litigated. It all has to be dealt with, and establishing a universal policy, of course, is not in any way helpful to the user. It's completely, communistic, but it is helpful to the ISP, and it's helpful to the government, and it's helpful to the evil people who run the copyright law that is destroying the enterprise of our nation. But another box there. But it is helpful to the ISPs, because then they don't have to fight every single information request that comes their way. They just say, here's the policy, here's the deal, and it stops them getting sued, and it stops them getting paper served.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I understand that, but we've never really discussed the topic on the program before, but I pretty much, when it comes to the issue of net neutrality, I'm in favor of net neutrality for the most part. Because here's my thing is, why should ISPs be having to deal with any of this? Give me the internet. And that's the big thing that bugs me is, for example, you have providers like Cox who, I have a business account here. They block port 80 traffic. I can't host a web server if I want to. Why are ISPs concerned about blocking anything? Give me the internet. Just give me the internet and let me do whatever I want with it, as long as it's not causing any major problems.
Right.
Now, my other issue with all of this is that whenever you start having this regulation, I think it's ridiculous that they could even sue ISPs, because just as if, Father Ryan, you decided tomorrow that you wanted to order some CDs with illegal applications on it, that
for
get
example,
from China or something like that.
The pun.
If you were, but if you were to do that, order some DVDs or CDs with illegal applications on it, then who's going to turn around and sue the Postal Service? Not going to happen. Who's going to turn around and sue UPS or FedEx? Not going to happen. Because, I mean, just as UPS and FedEx really doesn't have the right so much to open up your packages and just inspect them on a whim, why are ISPs inspecting your packets simply because they can?
Yeah. And I would argue that, it would be really ideal if there were no logs kept. Now, of course, I know why ISPs are keeping logs. It's not malicious. It's because of caching technology.
Yeah.
If somebody goes out and they say, I want this Netflix video, or I want this web page, and the ISP knows that 75 other people on that network are going to answer the same thing, it's in their best interest to have a smart system to save that data locally, so they don't have to go out and use external bandwidth. And so, in an effort to make it easier for us and easier for them, they inadvertently are creating private data that can then be used maliciously by other people, even the government. So it's one of those situations that's not as cut and clear as it might seem like it would be. But it's still very, very dirty and very unfair that we, in this nation are kind of having Big Brother over our shoulder, when there should be a certain, expectation of privacy. If we can murder brutally 1.5 million kids every year in this nation over privacy, it seems like I should be able to download whatever the heck I want on the web and not have anybody, being sued about it, or being able to gain access to that information. It's deep hypocrisy.
I'll give you the example. As a new firearm owner, I recently became aware of the fact that whenever you purchase a firearm, you actually have to fill out this paperwork for the federal government that's, that when they do the background checks on you. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is when you fill out that paperwork, that doesn't stay in the FBI system or in ICS. That actually, because of a federal legislation by Congress, that can only stay in their system up to 24 hours, and they have to get rid of it. So they can't track. Congress has actually said you can't keep a database of firearm owners and use that to determine who has what firearms. I'm wondering why there's not something in place that says ISPs don't have to keep their logs for any longer than 24 hours so that companies like this can't request stuff like that. I mean, I know whenever I worked in libraries, we would not keep logs past the day of who would come in and use computers, not because we were trying to hide something, but because ultimately, when you do something, there's still a barrier for privacy that some people that you expect. I mean, even though you're using something in public, you expect that there's going to be some public aspect to it. I think we're getting too much where the government is in our nose and in our business. Before long, we're going to become that communist regime where they start, you're searching for XYZ Catholic.
Yeah.
We're going to prohibit that.
That's right. Or you're searching for Beretta, not the gun.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, it's interesting if you look at the legislation. It says these measures begin with the 5th or 6th alert, and they may include, and we quote, temporary reductions of internet speeds, redirection to a landing page until the subscriber contacts the ISP to discuss the matter or review and respond to some educational information about copyright or other measures that the ISP may deem necessary to help resolve the matter. It sounds so polite.
It does, but the easiest way to deal with this is, well, one, of course, is not to illegally copyright music. I would get into an argument with a number of people about the morality of that question, and I would, in fact, come down on the more libertarian side of, if it's out there, it's information, you can use it. But barring all that, if you are going to be transferring data over systems that are questionable, there are a number of ways to privatize yourself, and I'm not looking to encourage illegal activity in any way, shape, or form.
No.
But take advantage of the simple ways to privatize information. I know that I'm not doing anything illegal, but I like to privatize all of what I'm doing, and I keep it hidden behind a number of systems because I just don't want anybody messing with my stuff. And I'm just a redneck from the South, and that's what we do. And if somebody's looking our way, we're likely to throw a rock at them.
Right.
Got plenty of rocks in Campty.
And Father Ryan, I want our listeners to understand, too, that I'm not condoning the illegal use of the internet for anything as well.
No, not at all.
But what I'm trying to point out is, for example, when you look at the case of DRM, the DRM was the legitimate way that companies were attempting to prevent piracy. But in the end, what did it accomplish? It did not prevent piracy, but it simply hurt people who were legitimately trying to use media.
Yeah.
It's trying to use audio for its intended purposes. Then you had stupid stuff where you couldn't have you couldn't take a CD and legally rip it and put it on your iPod. You had to technically, you had to buy the digital copy. My whole issue with all of this is that if ISPs are having to filter traffic and having to search through all this stuff, then that's simply going to start causing problems later down the line with people who are trying to use things for legitimate purposes.
Yeah.
Are going to be blockaded with things because of these stupid regulations that are put in place.
Yeah, and really, if you want to talk about slowing internet speeds, start packet sniffing everybody.
Yeah.
That would certainly do it.
And I think it's going to be an even bigger deal in the course of the next few years as more and more and more of our information is automatically transferring across the web. We know that iCloud, if you have an iPhone and you have a Mac at your house, whether you want it or not, within the next 6 months, basically all your personal data is going to be traveling across the web automatically. And that's a great thing, but if there are people who maliciously want to get it and they want it bad enough, as we've seen with the recent run of hackings from the lulz groups, there is many people who can get access to it if they want it.
Yeah.
And, like I said at the beginning of the show, if it's digital, it's hackable. And in a certain sense, you've got to realize there are certain things that should not be out there. And that's an especially important thing for our younger listeners and especially the kids of our listeners. Stop putting pictures on Facebook that don't need to be on Facebook, and stop posting things to blogs that belong in leather-bound, handsome Moleskine journals.
Tomes, yes.
Don't put stuff out unless you want to fully expect that other people are going to see it. And it runs the risk of endangering your career and and other things that are important in the future.
Well, and of course, Rupert Murdoch's empire is figuring that out too.
Yeah, they are.
Right. I mean, I think the whole issue boils down on there's two ways to approach this matter. And as an IT professional, having worked in the field, what the biggest problem is that people don't want to change user behavior or make individual users responsible for their behavior. For example, I worked at one place where we had users who were constantly downloading things that were putting spyware on their machine. So what's the solution whenever that happens? Well, why don't you go and put some filters in place that prevent them from doing the things that they, getting to those places? Well, no, why don't you actually hold that user to task for what they're doing and stop user behavior? And ultimately, I don't want to say that we shouldn't legislate morality, but I hold, to the premises that Aquinas taught, where he said the government shouldn't be worried about necessarily regulating everything that is immoral. I mean, Aquinas held, and even said this in the Summa, that he didn't think the government should be worried about making prostitution illegal. He said, because even though it's immoral, he said the government has more important things to do than worrying about trying to regulate prostitution. That's my point, is that I think we need to start worrying about morality on the basic level.
Yeah.
And making individual users responsible rather than just trying to say, oh, well, we're just going to, filter you.
And of course, that's the age-old thing of can you do the common good if you yourself are not formed properly?
Right.
And you're basically just asking an individual to step up and say, hey, can we at least agree that you should do no harm? Let's if we leave the Ten Commandments aside for a moment, can we at least agree that your reason for existence and doing whatever it is that you're doing is so that you don't harm yourself, harm another? I mean, because unfortunately now you can't even proceed from a Christian standpoint when it comes to these
it's like being back in kindergarten and one guy in the classroom threw a rock at somebody, and so everybody has to miss recess.
Right, exactly. That's exactly right. That's true. Well, yeah, we could spend forever on that, but we shan't on this podcast. You'll want much longer form podcasts, although I don't know of any that I know of that are longer form Catholic podcasts. But as we kind of transition as well, a really cool way that the common good is being respected is in regards to the life issue, to pregnancy and to fertility issues. And there's a new fertility monitor out there that is thankfully offering an effective alternative to in vitro fertilization, which, of course, as you know, is a forbidden practice, although I think it's kind of the flavor of the year. It has been for the past few years of when people are having fertility issues, rather than going to something like natural family planning, especially if they're not Catholic or if they're not practicing their faith as they ought. They usually go towards IVF because it's famous,
Right.
And so there's the news of this new device. And Father Ron, I think you put it in the show notes here.
And it's really not anything as magical. I clicked on the link on a feed and said, "Oh wow, this is going to be cool." All it is a computer that helps you do your NFP better. For those people who don't know what NFP is, natural family planning is a symptothermic method. So the woman in the relationship would take her temperature at the same time every day, usually right after she wakes up, and check a few other basic her bodily function. She checks those things, and you put them on a chart. I know it seems a little goofy, but it gives you insanely accurate information about when the woman is ovulating, when it's possible for her to have a baby, when she's fertile and when she's infertile. And then the basic method is you pray at the beginning of each month, and you say, Lord, do you want us to be open to life this month? Do you want us to have a child this month? Or should we not and abstain from sexual intercourse when we're fertile, and then engage in sexual intercourse when we're infertile, of course, not using contraception.
Wait a minute, Father. You mean that we're actually supposed to, if you're a married person, you're supposed to be praying with your spouse about being open to life?
That's right. You pray, you're open to life, and at the same time, you're willing to embrace abstinence for 9-10 days a month.
That's right. So in a sense, it's almost like continence for the kingdom with your spouse.
That's right. It absolutely.
Awesome.
And actually, just a slight correction to Father Ryan there. Yeah, not all NFP forms are symptothermal. For example, the Creighton model is just sympto, not thermal.
Okay.
So
it's a different type of charting.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But this basic method is nothing more than NFP in the symptothermic method, where there is a little patch that the woman puts on, and it communicates with a little computer device, a handheld computer device, that keeps the temperature to great accuracy, and it makes sure it's recorded throughout the day. And so instead of having to fool with the charts or anything, you know exactly when you're fertile, exactly when you're not. And according to the doctors, this is as effective, if not more effective, than in vitro fertilization. Now, Now, of course, this is generally done when the fertility issues are in the woman, not in the man. But it's a fantastic program, and it provides a real alternative to in vitro fertilization. Of course, the other side of this that nobody's willing to talk about is where is all this newfound sterility coming from? And it's coming from years of taking the birth control pill.
Yeah.
But no one wants to mention that.
Nobody wants to say it out loud, but that's why everybody now is waking up sterile. It's because they're taking that freaking pill.
And could it be that this is so accurate because we're actually cooperating with our bodies rather than frustrating it?
Yeah.
Cooperating with God. Amazing.
Imagine that. You cooperate with God, and you are fruitful and multiply according to his plan. I don't know. There could be something to this whole Christianity thing after all. Just saying.
Wow-wee.
And for your dose of Christianity, you can come to the Catholic Church. If you happen to be in Ohio, and this is connected, of course, with pro-life issues as well. The bishop is halting the race for the cure. Is it Komen? Is that who it is?
That's it, Komen. Yeah. We've known for years now, having worked in the pro-life movement a few years back, that Komen for the cure breast cancer is a major contributor for Planned Parenthood. They raise money under the guise that it's for breast cancer treatment, which a lot of money does go to that, but there is a large amount that was going to Planned Parenthood. And when confronted with it this past year, they said, we realize that Planned Parenthood doesn't do anything about breast cancer at all. So, but the fact that they're a major contributor to Planned Parenthood is a major issue. So the bishop there in Ohio, Bishop Leonard Blair of Toledo, has actually told parishes and parochial schools that they are not permitted to raise funds for the Susan G. Komen for the Cure Foundation.
Wow. And that's it's awesome that bishops are standing up for these things that really are just part of the mainstream so much now that people don't even think about it. They think, oh, well, breast cancer awareness is important. A cure for breast cancer, finding a cure is important. And, of course, nobody looks at the fine print or where the money's going.
And I think it's ultimately that bishops are now realizing that they could do the right thing, and there are people going to stand behind them and back them and not stone them.
That's exactly right. That's very true. And so kudos to Bishop Blair.
But I'm not going to put a link to this terrible, terrible article in the show notes. This is an obnoxious article from USA Today.
Yeah,
with a very
it's pretty
cocky
bad
and obnoxious woman. So if you want it, Google it.
Google it. Yeah. As we get ready for the introduction for the revised translation of the Roman Missal, the 3rd edition, there is the possibility, or at least seemingly, some dramatic changes in the rubrics in terms of music, and that's something else. And so, Father, basically, the new Missal was approved in 2002 with all of its general instructions. We know it very well, the Institutio Generalis. Some even call it the Germ, which annoys me more and more these days. And around 2003, that general instruction it became binding in the U.S. because they had all the updates and everything that were local.
Right.
And so now as we prepare for the new Missal, it's quite possible that some wording is going to be changed in the general instruction, especially in regards to the word chant and hymn. Is that correct?
Right. What we're seeing is a number of blog articles starting to appear about the languages. For example, a blog article appeared on Father Z's blog recently, wherein it was certain things about how communion is to be received in the United Kingdom. There were minor changes, but they basically said if somebody wants to kneel and receive communion, you better freaking well give them Holy Communion and don't even consider not doing it.
They paraphrase, but yes.
You sod. It's paraphrase. But these particular changes take the word cantus in Latin, which can mean chant, song, any kind of sung phrase. And whereas in the current translation we know it says the word hymn, in the new translation that will be sent out with the liturgical books, it very clearly states a liturgical chant from an approved book. And so this is not one of these pick whatever song that came to you in the Life Team box. This is, you have to pick a liturgical hymn from an approved book. And that's a fairly radical change, and that's going to have pretty far-reaching consequences if it's upheld and if it is obeyed.
And if it is enforced. I mean, I know that there are some parishes that don't use hymnals at all. They just know the 10 or 12 songs in their community that they've been singing forever, and that's it. And and so it's very difficult for a priest to come in and say, "Oh, okay, where are the hymnals?" It's a difficult thing, and this is one of the things where I think we need our bishops to back us on that sort of thing as a priest. That we want to have music that is good, that is meaningful, but that is also approved.
I think that in my mind, and I've spoken with a number of priests about this, including one who's studying liturgy in Europe right now. I like the long-term idea of this, and I think it's definitely the direction we need to go. I'm very, very concerned, though, if it is radically imposed. We know what happened in 1969. We know the bad things that occur when people just show up and say, "Okay, we're doing everything differently now."
Yeah.
So hold on to your butts. It seems like if this is the will of the church, then I'll certainly do it tomorrow morning. But I really would hope that our bishops would be obedient, but be obedient in a sense of, okay, this is going to happen, but it's going to happen in 3 or 4 years. So start making a transition phase. And I would really hope, too, that there would be some resources that would appear on the web that would teach priests like me who can't carry a tune in a bucket how to at least provide some kind of meaningful chant from my side. Because in my parishes where I don't have choirs, I would love to do Gregorian chant. But right now I'm stuck with rectitona, with a single tone, because I don't have any knowledge, I don't have any background, I don't have any training materials, and I don't have any natural talent to do it.
Well, there's a Ustream video, not Ustream, a YouTube video out there right now that I came across the other day that the subtitle of it is "Learning Chant is Not That Difficult." And they've actually, it's actually a video shot at a Catholic school by the name of St. Teresa's somewhere. And they're interviewing the children who are all singing Gregorian chant. And they're talking about how it's not difficult at all to learn. And in fact, some of them said it was easier than learning some of the other music that they have to learn. And so it was amazing listening to these children sing Gregorian chant. It completely blows the argument out of the water that you hear so often, is that, it's just too difficult to do in my parish, so we don't do it. This is why every hymn you ever hear is from Morty Hogan or David Haas. I mean,
and that's the thing. I mean, I hear some of the things that we sing on any given Sunday in our parish, and I'm looking at the notation because I can read music. I can more or less carry a tune in the bucket. I can sing, and I'm going up there trying, carrying my hymnal in the procession because it's a song I've never heard before, and I'm trying to sight read it, going, "Wow, this is really complicated." It really is, and yet some of the hymns, that are very simple, that go to 4/4 time or 3/4, that were written or at least kind of resurrected in the 30s and 40s, and again some of the chant that seems so much more natural. The voice almost falls into it. That's the beautiful thing about chant, is that the voice almost falls into the tone.
And if one takes the time and has a teacher who can teach just the 8 psalm tones, when there's not 8, there's more like 24. But if you can learn those psalm tones, even if you don't do them perfectly, you can set basically any text, no matter how simple or complicated, long or short. You can set any text to a perfectly beautiful and sacred tone. And it's something I'm working on, but it would be really nice if somebody out there, and I know Watershed, Corpus Christi Watershed has made some progress, but it'd be really great if somebody would use the new media and do some really cool things that teach you how to learn each of the psalm tones. Because once you have those, you can do anything.
That's right. That's very true. And actually, I mean, I know maybe 2 or 3 because we went to a Benedictine Abbey and actually learned some of the psalm tones. So yeah, I can put prayers to it. Actually, rarely when I do sing the Eucharistic prayer, I'll do it according to a very simple psalm tone. And in fact, I did that for the funeral today, because sometimes I can sense when there needs to be a little bit more. It turns out when you sing the Eucharistic prayer, and I know Father Ryan and I could get into an argument on this, but when you sing the Eucharistic prayer, I find that people who are non-Catholic pay attention, and those whose Catholic calisthenics are kind of deleted for one reason or another, they pay attention as well. And so I use a psalm tone for that, and it's amazing how people actually pay attention to the words a little bit more when they're being chanted. And it's, of course, it's the same with any of the prayers of the church, if those are chanted. And that's why I think in the new Missal, there is a definite kind of lean towards chanting, because that's a part of our heritage that we seem to have just kind of deleted from our at least recent memory.
The new, or not the new, the revised translation of the Mass that we're getting ready, to go to. Every time I've heard someone speak about it, they talk constantly about how, we want you to sing the dialogues. We want you to. That's really where the faithful should be participating in a very public way, in a very active, quote unquote way. And the dialogues were originally sung because that's when the priest would kiss the altar,
right,
turn around, face the congregation, and that way he didn't just say, "Y'all still there? Anybody there?"
That's right.
There was a sense of the Lord be with you. I'm not forgetting you up here. We're doing things up here for you. And there was a sense of chanting these things back and forth.
Yeah.
And the new revised translation of the Missal really does place emphasis on that and saying, we're not just randomly saying, and with your spirit.
Right.
Ideally, these things are meant to be sung at every Sunday Mass.
Right.
And that would really, I think, wake a lot of people up from just going and also.
One of my parishioners said the other day, my parishioners have a wonderful way of putting things, and she was talking about the new, the revised translation, saying, "Well, Father, when we say 'and with your spirit,' what happens if the priest has a bad spirit in him?" I said, "Well, that 'and with your spirit' should be a reminder to him that you're asking that his spirit be in conformity with the Holy One." She goes, "Oh, well, that makes sense." I said, "You're darn right it does, because." Sometimes when I get up there, I do need to hear "and with your spirit,"
Yeah.
on any given early Mass when I'm not quite awake. I don't even have a spirit in me. I'm just kind of, oh my goodness, here we are again. Yeah. But that dialogue is important, and as you say, Father Ryan, there was an intention to actually having dialogue within the Mass that's appropriate. With the server responding. It's almost as if that was the way it was supposed to be.
Yeah, what are you going to say?
I don't know about all that. So let's see.
Jewish of you.
That's right. Now, there is also connected to that, Life Teen has produced a pretty good video of the revised translation of the Roman Missal. Some of the history is kind of wonky, but all in all, it's a very good version of why, as a parent, you should care. And it's also suitable for children too. It's really good, and the priest looks like he gets a haircut every week. But other than that,
I did actually go to the site and watch the video for youth ministers and the video for teens as well.
Oh, there's a teen one too.
Yeah, and it was quite good. It was very good. I mean, it has the same wonky history, but generally speaking, very well put together video. So worth checking out.
Very good. And for we who are priests, the Congregation of the Clergy in Rome has issued a guide for confessors, called The Priest Minister of the Divine Mercy, an aid for confessors and spiritual directors. Is it in? It's in Italian. It's not in English yet, is it?
No, it's in English.
It is really.
I read it through and through, and it is a well put together document and something every priest should certainly take the time to read. My favorite part, though, and I actually have here, is at the end they have an examination of conscience for priests.
Ooh.
And there are some really excellent highlights. Yes, I'm using an actual physical piece of paper and not a digital iPad of any sort. But it has some really good things along the lines of, do I enjoy being in the presence of Christ in the Blessed Sacrament and meditation and silent adoration? And things like, am I convicted that when I act in the person of Christ, I am directly involved with the same body of Christ, the church?
Wow.
And, of course, we saw in a couple of blogs asking questions like, do I faithfully wear the proper vestments and all the right things, and do I say the right words without changing them to suit my own my own ideologies, etc., etc.? And do I pay due attention to sacred vessels and ensure their conservation? And do I wear dignified fashion of all the sacred vestments?
Wow.
Very, very cool thing. The examination of conscience is 20 points long. The document itself deals with confession and spiritual direction and is well worth a read by the faithful and certainly by priests alike. It's at claris.org.
Now, Father Ryan, this is something different from what the Vatican issued a while back, the Vade Mecum for confessors, correct?
Right, very different.
This is just kind of a little a pastoral guide, I guess you could call it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more of a like a pep me up and just gang, don't forget confession is a giant part of what you do.
I'll be reading that this evening.
And
I'm going to bring it to my brother priest tomorrow because I don't know if all of them have seen it yet.
I strongly recommend reading it in the confession, which is what I did, and it was very, very fruitful.
Yeah, very cool. Alrighty, let's see. What else have we got here on the big giant list? As I look at the clock here. Father Ray Blake from the UK has an interesting observation about priests who visit his parish. Oh, yeah, there you go. He says, and this is Father Blake talking. He said, I'm delighted to offer hospitality to any priest. The strange thing is that older priests visiting Brighton tend to sit in the congregation. Middle-aged priests want to concelebrate, but younger priests are quite different. Often they want to celebrate their own Mass, and not unusually in the extraordinary form, or at least in Latin. It is a generational thing, but is also an illustration of a change within the Church. Yeah, and Father makes an interesting point. What about these three different kind of ideologies, if you want to call them that? They don't always organize themselves by age or year of ordination, because we have some newly ordained in our diocese who are 40 years old, and they would tend to fall within that younger crowd, you know.
Well, the one observation I like to make is what a lot of people don't realize is that if you actually sit down and read Redemptionis Sacramentum, the one thing it actually forbids is for clerics to attend Mass as lay people.
True.
Right.
You're not supposed to, if you're a priest, a deacon, sit in the congregation. It drives me crazy, even whenever I see deacons who go, oh, just because I'm not,
I'm with my family today.
Yeah, I'm with my family at this Mass. Like, well, don't you realize you're still a deacon? Whether and the same thing for priests who just go, well, I'm going to sit in the pew because I'm on vacation. If you read Redemptionis Sacramentum, it's very clear that even if you're not going to concelebrate, you should at least dress in cassock and surplice and attend in choir.
Yeah, but the whole concept, and we've talked about this on the show, of attending in choir, I mean, nowadays, if I speak to one of my brother priests about attending in choir, they go, well, you don't have to sing. That whole notion is just gone. And I've tried to kind of help my parishioners with it, because there have been a few times in my parishes where I've said my 6 masses for the weekend, and there was another event, and so I just want to attend in choir. Well, it's almost as if that's an anathema. Why would you want to do that? Well, because I've met my canonical requirements, and I don't want to overstep it, and it wouldn't be appropriate in this sense for me to concelebrate. And
it's so interesting. I mean, because that really is that gap. Because I was talking to a priest friend of mine who's our age, who was telling me he went to a parish to attend Mass because someone he knew was being confirmed. And the old priest, and when I say old, he just retired, so he's that gap where it's the much older priest want to sit in the pew, and keeps telling my priest friend, he says, are you going to concelebrate? And he says, no, I'm just going to attend in choir. He goes, and he must have asked him like 8 times, you sure you don't want to concelebrate? No, concelebrate.
Yeah. Right.
He said we went through this back and forth, like he just couldn't understand why I didn't want to say, I wasn't going to concelebrate Mass, I was just going to attend in choir.
Yeah, it's a strange thing, and yet you are participating in the liturgy. That's the weird thing that it doesn't always get. It has to be very cleverly explained. I don't want to interrupt you,
Father, but there is an interesting side note. I was recently rereading questions about confession because I read this document from Rome, and it actually says that when there are several priests concelebrating, and this is from this document as well as from other documents, when there are several priests concelebrating, at least one, if not more, should go to the confessionals and not concelebrate, and should hear the confessions of the faithful while they're there at Mass to give them the maximum opportunity to approach the sacrament of divine mercy, end quote. And that's something that would be earth-shattering to mention, but imagine how good that would be, for the faithful who gather for a special Mass, and all during the Mass there's the opportunity for confession, the opportunity to approach the sacrament of divine mercy. It's so sad that because of a weird sense of participation, that we have this obligation now to go up and stand there for no apparent reason. It just drives me a little bonkers.
Well, that's what's great is here in the Diocese of Lafayette, at the cathedral in Lafayette, often you will have that situation where noon Mass is going on, and then there's a priest who is in the confession, who's hearing confessions throughout all of Mass.
That's cool.
And it saved me more than once because I've gone in, and you as priests know how it is sometimes. Someone goes in the confessional, and I'm sitting there looking at my watch going, what are we having, family reunion in there or something? Because these people are taking 15, 20 minutes. And I'm like, there's only 30 minutes for confession, and someone goes in there and takes 15 minutes. Well, you just really, lost a lot of people who needed to go. And so what happens is, I've had more than a few times where I'm standing in line, the entire Mass to go to confession. Right as communion is getting ready to start, I hit inside the confessional box. And as I come out, I'm able to get right into the line and receive communion, and it's just a wonderful experience to just have had your soul completely cleansed and step right into that line to receive your Lord and Savior.
That's quite a gamble, though, man. You got to time it just right.
Yeah.
You've become very good at it, though, I'm sure.
It's only happened once or twice, but I mean, it's really nice to have that opportunity to know, well, I'm going to Mass, there are priests who are here, and you don't have that look of regret that inevitably is on your face whenever the priest runs out of time. And you're
That's
like,
right.
oh,
It's a horrible look. And sometimes it's not a nice look either.
yeah.
Well, you know what, gentlemen? It's time for Back Chat. Alrighty, this comes to us from Kevin on planet Earth. He says, I have a Droid Incredible, which I think is just a great name for a device.
Mr. Incredible?
That's right, Mr. Incredible. And I use an app called Catholic One, like Pepsi One, except this has all the calories in it. The version that I have, 1.5.4, has a lot of things. Daily readings, Liturgy of the Hours, Rosary, Stations of the Cross, prayers, Latin prayers, my prayers, Bible, bookmarks, and catechism. I'm pretty happy with this version, and if anyone else is looking for any of these, I would recommend this version of the app. I'm getting a sense that this version is important. However, the latest version of the app removes several key items from the app due to copyright. Daily readings, Liturgy of the Hours, Bible, and catechism. So we're left with the things that we know already, and the things we would use the app for have been removed from it. It's almost like it's been neutered. Do you have any recommendations for any of the above items that were taken out? For Android, I'm going to have to turn to somebody else because I don't have an Android device. At least not yet. You know, the iPhone 4 still dead, but yeah, I don't. Father, do you know of any Liturgy of the? I mean, if you're a layperson, you can always go to the Universalis website.
Well, isn't iBreviary in
iBreviary is
Android?
for Droid, I thought. Hold on, I'm going to check that while we're
think
talking
there
here.
is.
Yeah, I mean, there are a ton of good web apps. Tons and tons of good web apps.
While you're researching that, I will say that everyone who works in the USCCB copyright office will spend forever in purgatory.
Yeah, quite
because of this ridiculousness.
Yeah, iBreviary is available for Droid.
Okay.
Yeah, if you go, it's in the androlib.com by Paolo Padrini. Let's see here.
I'm with you though, Josh. I think there's no good reason whatsoever to enforce copyright on something like the breviary, the Missal, the Bible, the lectionary. That's just offensive to God. It's simony.
Can you just see yourself standing before the Lord of all creation and him looking at you and going, why did you keep my children from reading the Mass parts? And you're going, because he had a copyright?
That's right, yeah.
I mean, it's and you know the only reason it's there is because we've got to support a giant bureaucracy of people who do nothing in Washington, D.C. We need a lot of people sitting around writing documents that mean nothing.
Well, somebody's got to keep the turbines on the mothership running. You know?
Yeah, that's it. Well, and to do that, they've got to keep copyright on the catechism, the compendium of the catechism, the U.S. catechism, the Bible, half what the Pope writes. I mean, it's simony. Anybody who looks up the grave crime of simony know that we should just excommunicate the whole crowd and be done with it.
I can understand having copyrights to protect something, but whenever you have a copyright and you start sending people cease and desist letters because they're making podcasts or they put the readings online, then we've got some real issues going on.
Yeah, we've railed against this before, and I'm with you, Josh. I can appreciate the pure desire to preserve the Word of God from profanation, but whenever it becomes so restrictive that you can't actually use the Word of God for what it's supposed to be used for evangelization and for prayer, then yeah, there is a problem. So.
Or, as some would say, ridiculous.
It's ridonculous. That's right. Can decline that.
We do need to pray for these people, though, because I would argue very sincerely their souls are in danger for doing something so stupid and disgusting. And I it's the grave crime of simony, and that they take their souls in their hands.
Yep. There you go. So I don't know if we really answered your question there, Kevin, but
iBreviary, but it is your answer.
But in the chat room, there is some stuff too, because iBreviary does, but there's some stuff going on in the chat room. Very good. Okay. Alrighty. Yeah, Father Ron can be harsh if you're just tuning into the
Father
podcast.
Ron doesn't care if he's harsh about this.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. And I would hope that that people aren't putting their souls in danger over a piece of paper or a piece of paper with a dead president on it, Alrighty. Catholicon is upon us. It's coming close. July 15th is it's day after tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
one more day.
That's right. One day more until
get your tickets.
That's right.
They are $35 a piece right now for the entire weekend. That's right, not $35 a day or anything like that. $35 the entire weekend, and it's through tomorrow. Beginning July 15th, you're going to have to pay that $50 cost.
That's right.
Because you didn't register early. So get your tickets today or tomorrow if you're listening to this podcast. I don't know when it's going to be released, so it may be released after the 15th. But get your tickets before the 15th so you don't have to pay that extra $15.
It depends on if I get a fake day off or a real day off to edit the podcast tomorrow,
I guess it depends on where you're at.
Well, that's also true. That's also very true. And also, for a limited time, you can get that deeply discounted $99 a night room at the beautiful 4-star Texas Intercontinental near the Galleria in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I just gave the entire Intercontinental to Texas. Anyway, so I can't back that up. So we're looking forward to seeing all of you at Catholicon. I know people are starting to get excited. I'm very excited. Josh is excited. Father Ryan manages to get excited.
As excited as I'm capable of becoming.
That's right. As my middle school principal told me, the reason she liked me so much is because I didn't hype.
I don't know what that means.
And I think that Father Ryan doesn't hype either. At least I haven't seen it anyway. So what we're going to do is we're not going to take a little bit of a break because I'm looking at the clock over here. We're just going to move right from Backchat into what we like to call
the CU Pick of the Week.
And for the CU Pick of the Week, we're going to go first to Joshua LeBlanc. Joshua.
Yeah, my pick of the week is actually something I just came across a few days ago. It is actually an iPhone app. I don't think it exists in Android. If it does, it's probably fairly new. But the app is called Songify. If you've ever heard Father Chris and I talk about, or I know Father Chris is a big fan of the Auto-Tune the News, if you do a Google search for that, Auto-Tune the News, where they basically take the news and then they tune it so that they can make songs with it. Well, this is an iPhone app written by the same people who did that, and you can actually take written speech or you can take music or anything like that and actually auto-tune it and release it as via email, Facebook, or anything like that you want to send to your friends. So it's kind of cool.
So we thought we'd do the Pope. I don't know if you can hear. Can you hear that? You see, you can songify papal documents. You can songify Father Ryan.
I don't think that's possible.
You could songify Catholic Underground. It would be great.
Yeah, well, you know what? That actually brings up a great idea. If you are an iPhone user and you want to download the Songify app, we're going to run a contest. So Songify anything Catholic, the Pope, Catholic Underground, the weirder the better. Make it Catholic, though. And what we're going to do is run a little contest. If you take and you email that to us at backchat@catholicunderground.com, up until August 1st, we're going to give whoever we think did the best one 2 free tickets to Catholicon.
2 free tickets to Catholicon, and you will be featured on a Catholic Underground presentation.
That's it. We'll play it also on a podcast. So.
That's right. And you know what? We might even Google Hangout with you on the show. I'm just saying. Anything can happen with our big show. So that's Josh's Songify iPhone app. It will be in the show notes, and you'll be able to download it and get started on that contest. My pick of the week perhaps illustrates my extreme geekiness. It's called The Fastest Possible Drawings of Everything. So I don't know about y'all, but as somebody who draws, I like to see how many strokes it takes me to make something discernible. And sure enough, there's a blog that's already doing it. So
wow.
So yes, there is a blog that's already doing it. And so if we look over at Fastest Possible, you can see Fastest Possible beer. When you think of a beer, what container does it come in? What does it come in a can? What's the possible? And so these people will use the fewest strokes possible to suggest what these things are, like the fastest possible penguin. And it's always like a little speed drawing blog. A knight, Yeah. So this
Birthday cake.
a bear holding a bomb. I mean,
What?
Yeah. Fastest possible ghost. Candelabra with
scuba
candles.
diver.
That's right. So if you want something fun, and maybe if you want to challenge yourself, then check and see the fastest possible drawings. We'll put that in the show notes for you. Fastestpossible.tumblr.com. And that moves us to Father Ryan, who is the slowest possible drawer, but he's a very fast writer.
Terrible drawer.
I've seen you scribble, Father.
Yeah, it's disastrous. I made a dog once that looked like a castle. So anyway, delicious.com, which used to be del.isio.us, was a fantastic social media bookmark sharing engine. It was great, and then Yahoo bought it, and then it stunk. Well, finally, Yahoo's gotten rid of it, and now delicious.com is back, and it works. Basically, what you do is you find something you like, you tag it. So you put whatever tag you want, and then other people can come along, search that tag, and voila. What we've done in the past is you could delicious tag something, number sign CU topic, and we would be able to do a search before the show and be able to see all the things that you recommend we discuss. And so we're going to bring that back. And so if you have delicious.com, go and get your account working again. And as you're surfing the web or you're on Google Reader, hashtag things CU topic, and we will follow and we will post and discuss those things on the show. But also, I recommend it very, very much for being able to find things where people have tagged South Sudan. People have tagged all kinds of really useful stuff. And I really hope Delicious comes back to being what it once was, because it was incredibly useful for me. So go to delicious.com and make that community come back to life, please.
You can see that he's really serious about this.
I'm very serious.
I'm very serious about this thing.
We'd also like to take a minute to thank Audible.com for their sponsorship of the Catholic Underground. Audible is the world's leading supplier of audiobooks and spoken word digital audio. So if you surf over to audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground, you're going to get 2 free weeks to try the service out. The Gold Plan, which is what we hope you'll sign up for, offers you an audiobook every month and gives you access to tons of free and heavily discounted materials. That's books, magazines, papal speeches, and sermons, even daily newspapers like the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. You can turn your commute or your time at the gym or your yard into something that's really going to be meaningful for you. And so this week, I want to recommend a book by one of my favorite people in the country, Supreme Knight of the U.S. Knight of Columbus, Carl Anderson, who wrote a book on the Pope John Paul II's theology of the body that is called Called to Love by Carl Anderson. The book's about 8 hours long. It usually costs you $25 if you go. But if you go to audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground, you're going to get it absolutely free. And we really hope you're going to fall in love with Audible. And we hope that this book is going to give you a chance to rediscover the beauty of John Paul II's theology of the body. And it couldn't come from a finer example of a Catholic layman than Carl Anderson.
Yeah, he's pretty awesome. And of course, Joshua, as you assume more and more duties with your Knights of Columbus, I know that you're getting to enjoy Carl Anderson even more. Isn't that right?
Yeah, actually, I was installed as Grand Knight this past Monday of my council, and I actually have picked up a copy of this book. Strangely enough, it was on the Barnes & Noble clearance rack.
Oh.
I never understand the Barnes & Noble clearance rack because the paperback copies are normal price, but the hardcover is on the clearance rack for $8.
Yeah.
So I picked up a hardcover, and I've yet to start reading it, but I'm looking forward to it.
Very cool. Yeah. Hey, if you go back to the Barnes & Noble, pick one up for your priest friend.
Yeah, may have to.
Yeah, there you go. Let us know what some of the books are that you like. You can hashtag that in Delicious and for CU Topic, and we might talk about them. We might find them on audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground. So if you want get links to our Twitter feed, you can go to our Facebook page at CatholicUnderground.com and click the Facebook button. That didn't make any sense. Facebook.com/Catholic Underground. And you can also go to our webpage to find everything that you need, as well as all the stuff from our video podcasts, even our audio podcasts. You can find all that. You can also register for Catholicon 2011 if you go to CatholicUnderground.com and click the Catholicon icon that's up in the top of the screen, or go to CatholiconExpo.com, CatholiconExpo.com. All right, this is the point of the show where we end everything.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid, Father.
This is where you all sigh.
No, that's right. You all sigh because we have to go for another week. But we do have Joshua. What's that?
Relief.
Oh, sigh of relief. Yeah, you're probably right. That's more accurate. Joshua LeBlanc, is the IKEA showroom crossing guard, and he joins us. Joshua, thank you so much for your presence.
Hey, I like my stop sign on a stick.
That's right. Does it have slow on the other side?
Yes.
Does it have a sugary syrup on one side? That's important.
Look, have you been to IKEA lately? They could use some crossing guards.
They really could. There's high volume traffic these days.
There's hipsters everywhere. I mean, everywhere.
That's right. They don't know what to do with themselves. Also, Father Ryan is here. You've seen him. You've talked to him, and his doppelganger dog. He's online at campycatholicchurch.com, and all of his very dog-related posts are on Twitter. He is at FR Humphreys. Thank you, Father Ryan.
It's been my pleasure.
And you know me, I'm Father Chris Decker. You can follow me on Twitter at Digital Catholic. Thanks for tuning in and hanging around this digital continent. We're Catholic Underground, and we're Faith Gone Digital. We'll see you next time.
From the Catholic Underground.